In the autumn of 2022 we flew to Perth in Western Australia and we centred our stay around the Dawesville area near Mandurah. This is the Dawesville Channel and our family live on one side of the cut, as it's called locally. They live in Dawesville and we stayed in a chalet on the other side which is called Wannonup. This bridge is the only way across the cut for road traffic and we were regularly using this, including a walkway which is underneath and out of sight from here. The area of greenery you can see over there is the Cut Golf Course, and Colette and her family live in a house that backs onto that golf course. As we swing round to the left you can see a stretch of water which is called Collins Pool, and we'll explore that a little later on. Zooming in a little closer on the golf course on Southport Boulevard, you'll see that not only roads but little canals exist around this area because a lot of people have frontage to the canals and they have their own boats. At the top of the picture there you can see the ocean, and we'll be looking at that later on from the golf course because that's the beach where you can watch the sun go down. So here's the walkway which is underneath the road carriageways, and this was a path that we used more or less every day to get from one side to the other. Our chalet in Wannonup was actually in the marina, which you may have seen just then on the map. This pub, which overlooks the Dawesville Channel, is called the Cut Tavern, and we did have a meal in here one night. It has a bar on one side and a betting shop on the other. Apparently that's not unusual over in this part of Australia. Anyway, we've got lots to see, so let's take our first trip, and we're going on this train from Perth out to Fremantle. Soon after getting off the train we run into the chimera, which is a mythical beast with the head of a lion, the body of a goat and the tail of a serpent. People come from miles around to visit Fremantle markets because there's just about everything you could possibly want here and plenty of places to have some lunch. We chose the Dutch baby pancakes. I resisted buying a typical Australian hat. Well, they didn't have the corks. What good are they? My wife Ruth is really into crystals, so her daughter took us into this crystal shop and bought us a couple of little presents. On another day we visited Bunbury Farmers Market. Now there's a Bunbury in Cheshire and it definitely wasn't that one. There's one in WA as well, and their slogan is "From field to fork in 2 days flat." And there's quite a range of produce here for us to choose from. We spent quite a few weeks in Western Australia and we covered an awful lot of miles, going somewhere nearly every day. This is Busselton Jetty. This is the longest timber pile jetty in the Southern Hemisphere and it's 1.841 kilometres long. That's 1,841 metres if you prefer it that way. It's long and it's home to one of only 6 underwater observatories in the world. Our views from above, from Phil's drone, give us some idea of the scale of this jetty. To get from where we were staying in Wannonup to the centre of Perth, we would take the local bus up to Mandurah. There's a transport interchange there, and then we get a train into whichever part of Perth we want. Well, on this day we got off at Elizabeth Quay because there's a ferry from there going over to South Perth. First I had a look at the Elizabeth Quay bus station, and in case you hadn't guessed by now, the Elizabeth is our late Queen Elizabeth II, and there's a bus goes to the QE2 Medical Centre from here too. There's some interesting metalwork sculptures over here, and the metalworker is Jordan Sprigg. He uses scrap metal to create his masterpieces. See if you can recognise any of the car parts and engine parts on this, which is in memory of the last Northern White Rhino male who sadly passed away in 2018. On our return to Elizabeth Quay, we had a quick walk around the gardens in front of the Supreme Court, and then we walked around the rest of Elizabeth Quay where the boat from Rottnest Island comes in. Back in Dawesville, I'm flying my drone over the Cut golf course and back towards Colette's house, and granddaughter Jess is in the back garden there, trying to fly her little black toy drone. Not having a lot of success, I'm afraid, so I move on. I'm flying across the Cut to Bouvard Island, where there's also a village beach. In case you hadn't noticed by now, there's lots of big houses around here, and many of them have their own boats, which is why they need these canals, of course. You're watching a recap of an Australian visit that we made in the autumn of 2022 to Western Australia. This is Caversham Wildlife Park. It was September going into October, and back at home we were heading into autumn and our temperatures were getting colder, but of course in Australia it's spring, so it was getting warmer. Most of the time we were here it was at least 30 degrees. Caversham Wildlife Park is pretty huge, so we didn't have time to see absolutely everything, and I'm not able to show you that much with the video because this is a recap. If you look back on my YouTube channel, you'll probably find the original videos which stretched over several months in the autumn of that year. Caversham is definitely a touchy-feely place. You're allowed to get up close and personal with a lot of the animals and birds, and stroke some and feed some.
That's the kangaroo school right there.
Another day and another visit, and this is Lake Clifton in Yalgarup National Park, which is south of Mandurah. It's the Thrombolite Reef at Lake Clifton, which offers you a glimpse of what life was like when the Earth began. The thrombolites are one of the first life forms on Earth, dating back approximately 570 million years, and they produce oxygen that made all subsequent life possible. The Lake Clifton thrombolites are approximately 2,000 years old, and they're the largest in the southern hemisphere. This walkway out into the lake helps you to get up close and have a really good look at the thrombolites on the bottom of the lake. We've come back to the Wannonup side of the Dawesville Channel, and this is where we're staying in the marina in a very nice chalet. So let's fly over the marina and have a closer look at that. This is a cafe restaurant right on the marina front, and this is the view of it from our balcony in our first floor chalet. These are the chalets, and that's the one we're staying in. This is a wonderful place to be and to be staying. It's sunny, the air's fresh, there's water everywhere, there's boats on the move, there's interesting creatures about, there's the occasional dolphin, cormorants are flying and fishing in the cut all the time, and you never know what you're going to see on the next day you're there. And for the locals who've seen it all before, well, why not just sit there and fish? Sometimes all you catch is crabs. On the road leading down to the marina, there's a sign warning you about the magpies. They're pretty fierce here, especially when they've got young in the nest. We're staying on a fairly narrow strip of land with water on either side, and going right up the middle is the freeway and the railway. They run side by side, the trains going down the middle in the central reservation area. We've gone to Bunnings Warehouse, which is like a huge version of B&Q. It's even bigger than our B&Q warehouses, and just the barbecue department is bigger than most of our English do-it-yourself stores. Colette already had a barbecue, so we came this day to buy her fire pit.
And then just one log on it.
This is another trip up to Mandurah and a different area again. This is Dolphin Key this time, and we then go on to explore the foreshore area. There's a place called Todd's, which we went for breakfast, and I have a feeling Todd's is actually a chain because there's more than one of them. There is, of course, a tourist fun train running around this area, but I never actually got to go on it because I was too busy filming it.
Yeah.
From a tourist fun train to a full-size train that we found when we visited Dwelling Up. Have you noticed how places end in UP all around this area? Well, Dwelling Up was a busy centre for the timber industry until there was a disastrous fire in January of 1961. Most of the surrounding timber mills then ceased operation. So in 1974, the residents formed the Pinjarra Steam and Hills Railway Preservation Society. Bit of a mouthful. This later became the Hotham Valley Tourist Railway, and we did notice one of these engines was steaming up ready to go, so we thought we'd go and buy some tickets and get ourselves on a trip.
No.
You can't drive across all the dams in Australia, but you can drive across this one, the North Dandalup Dam. It was constructed in 1994. It's actually the newest dam serving Perth, and it has a capacity of 75 billion litres. Quick look around the lake and you'll see where all that water is. If you follow the road across the dam, it winds down below, and there's an area where you can picnic and have a bit of a paddle, and you can get a really good idea of the scale of the dam as the wall of stone goes up behind the picnic area, and you can see just what a magnificent construction it is. But in terms of dams, you haven't seen anything until you've seen this one at Collie. There's plenty of places to walk around this area, but you can't drive across this dam. The road's been closed for a while. But the thing you do want to do is find the observation point, because this gives you a view right across the front of the dam. And rather than being a load of rocks, as the previous one was, this dam has a wall mural believed to be the world's largest. It was painted by Guido van Helten, and it's called Reflections. It's inspired by local stories and photos, and once again Phil flew his drone for us and got some absolutely magnificent pictures of the artwork on the front of the dam. Guido used abseiling equipment and suspended platforms, and he camped in the bush for 4 months while he was creating this, the biggest dam mural on the planet, and I wasn't swearing. He dangled from ropes, wearing a headlight, painting at 4 a.m, and eventually coated 8,000 square metres of the Wellington Dam wall. He also painted huge lifelike human images inside a nuclear cooling tower in Chernobyl, by the way, and he's coated apartment towers in India's biggest slum and worn a bulletproof vest while painting a multi-storey building in the Ukraine. So he gets about. Well, we haven't got time to show you everything that we saw on our visit to Australia, but let's take another look into Yalgarup National Park. Yes, another word ending in up. And this is Preston Beach. If you've got a four-wheel drive, there are lots of trails for you here, and this is the car park where you set off from. We did notice that you have to take a little pressure out of your tyres before you set off. In Wellington Park you'll find the honeymoon pool. We didn't see anyone on honeymoon. There was a sign though that said you're not supposed to swim in here, but nobody was taking any notice of that. It was a hot day and being in the water keeps you cool. Taking the train once again into Perth city centre, and we walk up a steep hill into Kings Park, and that gives us an appetite. So we get fish and chips in newspaper. I know that's not allowed anymore, but this is specially prepared newspaper. Kings Park is home to the spectacular Western Australian Botanic Garden, and they display over 3,000 species of the state's unique flora. Now, I said we had to climb up a hill to get here. That's because the elevated position of Kings Park means that you have views right across the city and the river most of the time, and there's actually a walkway amongst the trees and the views continue along there. Here's one I've not come across before. It's labelled the H2O plant. Throughout any visit to Australia, you're bound to come across some of the traditional Aboriginal culture at some point or another, and if you want to learn more about it, just about every visitor centre has information for you. Florida Beach is about an hour's walk from where we were staying, and it was a hot afternoon. We didn't realise it was going to be such a long walk, frankly, but we'd gone to this area to see kangaroos. I get the impression they built a housing estate here in an area where kangaroos used to live wild. Kangaroos are obviously not put off by this, so if you live here, you can look out the window and find kangaroos on your lawn. Collins Pool is a short walk from where we were staying, and so we spent quite a few hours here on different days, and we found this cafe, not that it was lost, called the Leprechaun. Great place for breakfast. Don't know if it was an Irish breakfast or an Australian breakfast, but you know what I mean. A cooked breakfast, traditional style, and all that scenery, and right on the edge of the water. And proof that the magpies attack their fellow birds as well. Poor thing was just minding its own business when the magpie swooped in. This is another national park. There's lots of parkland around here you can go and visit. The thing that it all has in common is there's always loads of parking, there's never a charge for it, and you've got lots of shade under the trees, and there are public barbecues that you can use, just bring your own food. And everybody likes to stroke a kangaroo, including me. We're actually in this area to see the Serpentine Falls, and it's a short walk down to the pool in front of the falls, where it says you mustn't swim, and people still swim. I'm not sure why they put up those notices, nobody reads them. One of the good things about having a drone is that you can fly up and see where the water's coming from, and as you can see here, it's coming down from the mountains and flowing into this pool. You can see more of where that water's coming from if you refer back to the original videos in the Maythorn Monthly from the autumn of 2022. And we're going to finish as promised with the sunset, as the sun sets over our video, and we're back in the area where Colette lives, adjacent to the golf course and the Dawesville Channel, and the beach right here is called the Pyramids Beach. The snakes live here too, and you're constantly warned that they might be about, but we didn't actually see any while we were walking these paths. So that's it, our recap from Western Australia, where we stayed in Wannanup by the Dawesville Channel, and we explored a lot of the beaches nearby and a lot of the attractions further away. Hope you enjoyed it, and enjoy the sunset over the ocean.